We can.
Okay, we'll get this thing started. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I am Brian. That's Melissa. Desiree is on here as well. We're here to help you in the beautiful thing that is Revit Radio. If you don't know what that is, I see a lot of new names. Revit Radio is thank you for letting me know the question is off. I thought I turned it on. Revit Radio is a thing where you guys ask questions and I and Melissa will answer them for you. And Desiree will give us her 2 cents as well. Although I'm not, she might be distracted today with some other meetings. So that's it. If you have questions, please type them in the question and answer pod. Hopefully, Tom, it's turned on for you so you can get it put in there. If you just want to give us crap, the webinar chat is always a great place to do that. Or if you want to correct me when I'm wrong, that's absolutely something great to do as well, because we always are coming up with are these answers off the top of our head. No one said these are always going to be the most relevant or best ways to do things. So here we go. We're going to get started here. I always like to start with something while we're in there. And I do want to say, since last month's Revit Radio, every version of Revit has had an update since 2024. So we did have this last month, obviously, early July. They've had an update for Revit 22, Revit 23, as well as Revit 25 is on a 0.2 update. So if you didn't know that, Revit is on a 22 or 0.2 update. That 0.2 update did add some new features. So I'm just going to come up here into a nice, simple little file. One of the features that I noticed it opened, especially if you install it and you do not have it as part of your INI, it is automatically one of the great new things is they've turned on the new Revit home screen by default. So this has been one of those tools that was added. So if you go and install it, if you go ahead and install it from the new deployment, your new Revit home feature will be on. I've discussed this in the past. Personally, I love it when I'm on the Autodesk projects site. The new Revit home, I love it for Autodesk projects. It shows me all the different projects. I can switch between accounts here. I like it here. I think it's horrible under the recents personally. This is me. So I don't usually have it turned on for that reason. The other thing that did actually bring in to play in here was also the manage links. So if I come down here and go into manage links, the manage links dialog box, well, first I'll close this. Notice how on the there's no more manage anything else. We only have manage links. All of the manage has been combined into one. So right now, I should have probably opened up a file that had it. It would show you all of them, but you'll see it's one file. It'll break it down between the Revit file, the IFCs, CADs, all of the different types of file formats that we can actually link. It's going to go ahead and do for us. Sorry, I saw kids coming home and I saw my door open, so I thought I should close the door. So yes, the manage links, it's actually really cool. I like this. It gets into like, I'll probably open up a file that has something. It'll give you previews if it's like a CAD file or other things or images. It does show you everything now. So we have this all inside of a single link file here. The other thing that is new, and I know Melissa's going to love this one, we now have a tabbed project browser. So we come over here to the project browser, we can see all of the views. Call this the home, they called it, but this is kind of like our old classic where we see views and sheets and everything else. Or you can break it down to just views, just legends, just schedules, etc. And as you start getting into things like if you're getting to assemblies, it'll add the assemblies and it'll keep them going as it needs to as we start going through. So kind of a pretty cool little feature. I'm excited about this one. I just need to get more clients using Revit 25 so I can get to play with it a little bit more.
See, my only worry now is because I don't drive much. How else am I gonna, keep my scrolly finger all worked out if I don't have to go through all the kinds of views?
Yeah, I have an answer for that, but it's probably not something I should say since it's being recorded. The other thing I did want to cover that is more related. Somebody asked, does PyRevit work with 25 yet? No, I have not seen PyRevit updated. So hopefully it will get updated. But last year, PyRevit took forever to get updated. I don't know. It was a very long time. So now there is no PyRevit. Every app I have has been updated since June. So except for PyRevit, that's about the only one I didn't have. Even my smaller little apps have all been updated. So nope, not to my knowledge, is PyRevit up, and I have no idea when that will get happening. It's what you get when it's down to the people in general and something that's free, they don't need to they don't actually, they're volunteering to update it, so there's nobody getting paid and making money off of updating it. So
But you mean they need day jobs?
yeah, they actually have their day jobs and they're getting into
Oh,
their
weird.
they do take donations, that is true. So one thing I did want to cover here too, since I only see a couple of questions in there right now. I was doing this with one file, and I know Desiree when she used to work at engineering firms, and she was in the thick of Revit on a day-to-day basis. She told me that I need to teach this to everybody. And so what this is inevitably, whoever the lead is, if it's the architect or an engineer or whatever, they have a crap ton of things that they need to get the sheet index to work, right? So they might have special custom parameters for sorting, custom parameters for filling in little dots, whatever it might be, they've got those parameters. And I remember there was this one architectural firm where Desiree was great, it made me laugh so hard, is they created a 45-minute video on how to go create all of the parameters they wanted you to add to their project. So here you go in, they walk you through every single parameter. It was like a 45-minute video.
I was
So
wondering where you're going with this. I remember I remember now.
yes, I still laugh because I'm like, it took them longer to create this video than it would to do what I do. So this little file here that I had open, this is one for one of my clients. They have like 45 parameters they need you to have installed there. So literally for this, and this is for Fentress Architects, it's like, hey, I spelled out in a Revit file. So I have a Revit file. This Revit file gets posted either to the FTP site or even on, especially on this one, this is always posted to, they always use Autodesk Construction Cloud. So this is posted to a folder everyone has rights to in the ACC. It's even a cloud-based file, so anybody can open it off of the cloud. So I give all those permissions set up, but basically it comes down here and talks about all of their standards, as you can see in a few short paragraphs. Inside of this file, there's also going to be sheet indexes. So it even has a specific sheet index to show exactly how those things are going to be set up. Actually, I want to go to the sheet list, not the drawing index. So it's got a working version of this. Cool. Here's all of the working versions. You can see all the architectural sheets, et cetera, that are in this file. It's got placeholders for every single discipline, right? So this does have all of the architectural sheets, just as an example, but it has this inside of here. But more importantly, what this only has is in the project parameters, it only has the project parameters that are associated for using their sheet index. And the reason why I say it only has those parameters is there's nothing else inside of here. And the reason why this is set up this way is this can happen one of two ways. Somebody can grab this drawing list, copy it to the clipboard, and paste it into a new project. Or somebody could just transfer project standards inside of there when they go into it. So I just come over here and start a new project. I'm sure I'll use the multidiscipline parameters, excuse me, template to copy these parameters into. Come on. So it's very simple. I literally post this on there. And then if somebody wants to send an email out, they literally open up that opening view, copy all that text to the clipboard, paste it into an email, and then say, here you go. But so now that I've started about this standard file in here, again, if I go up to project parameters, I think there's a couple in the new out of the box template. You can see there's a few here. But now if I were to come in here, I can either do one of two things. I can go into the manage, I can say transfer project standards from the sheet parameter list. And all I need to do is transfer the project parameters. Say, okay, that is going to bring all of those project parameters across for me, right? If I go back up here now to my project parameters, you're going to see all of those different values that they have. I'm going to undo that just so you can kind of see, cool, now those project parameters are gone. The other way to do it that I always tell people is to literally open up this working schedule, copy it to the clipboard and paste it, because this working schedule has all of those in there as well. So I can literally just copy this to the clipboard, come into my project over here, go to my paste, and now I'm pasting that schedule into here, which also brings all of those parameters across. But not only does it bring those parameters across, now they have that schedule here to start to say, oh, okay, cool. Here's the schedule. I can make sure I'm filling out the data accordingly. So very simple. If the person who is ever the lead on a project or your offices literally should have a Revit project that only has your parameters for the sheets in there, and it has one placeholder sheet. Excuse me, I should have went to schedule. One placeholder sheet for each one of those, so everybody knows how to fill them out, no matter who copies it, and that's what you go through and do. So it's kind of my little tip of, hey, don't go through and start doing all this crazy stuff that I see firms doing of recording videos, giving people a list, sending them a project or a shared parameter file that they have to manually load in one at a time. Just create a project. That's all that's in there. And that's all you needed to have.
I'm really sad I didn't even think about making a 40-minute video to make people not watch. I just went right to the file. I will
Desiree's like, I got like 30. Desiree's like, I have 45 seconds into this video, and I'm like, oh, holy hell.
Yeah, weird. No, we definitely had one of those files, and I also had a working index that wasn't itemized, so that they could literally go in and just fill in all of their numbers and things in one line.
If I remember correctly, I think the process, it was a long time ago, the process they were suggesting is that you open their file and export each parameter individually and then assign it to what it needs to be assigned to one at a time. Well, so that's why the video was like 45 minutes long.
I just remember them walking through every single one and saying, here's how to do it. Now, here's the next one. Now, here's the next one. I'm like, okay, first off, the first three are fine. You could do it. Hey, here's all the parameters. I don't know. I'm like, or just do this. And I like that. Rowan's like, I refer to those as soul sucking videos. And I also personally don't understand why everybody thinks these need to be shared parameters. I really don't get why people think drawing index parameters need to be shared parameters. They're only ever going to be associated to the drawing index. They don't need to be shared parameters. They could just be project parameters. So for me, I'm kind of like, I don't really understand why we're even doing the shared parameters. I do know behind the scenes, if you're trying to use Dynamo, it's easier to find those things because they've got a unique ID. But again, to me, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. To me, they're always just project parameters.
I was wondering if that was one of those, because we did it that way a decade ago and nobody knows why, but that's just why.
Yeah.
That's just the answer, because.
So that was my forte into cool. There you go. Now we've got it set up. I like to cover that because I've had to go through this a few times in the last few weeks of clients and what parameters and how do they get those to their consultants. So there you go. Yeah, and this one I think the newer version, I actually have a very old version of this one for them that I opened up. I think one of these we actually have literally more of a setting inside of here, maybe not. I usually just put a lot of data up here in the schedule, like the schedule headers, as Michael said he does as well. I should probably zoom in so people actually read it, or at least old people like me can actually read it. So, okay, what's our first question today, Melissa?
Well, we should start with Tom, since he pointed out that we could do questions. So Tom says, making a rectangular blend in Revit, how can I make the sides 60 degrees?
I don't understand, like, if it's a rectangle, it's a rectangle. So you want it to be 60 degrees going up. So if it's a blend, and no matter how tall the blend is, you want the angles to be 60 degrees is what I'm inferring from this. So if that's not right, Rick, let me know, because that's what I'm going to, or sorry, Tom, let me know. He said yes. For that, I think I would end up using a formula for what the height needs to be based on. Well, no, it's always going to be 60. Your math can be there. So yeah, I would use a math to say, hey, whatever the height is, that top rectangle needs to be this width accordingly based off of the height to maintain it as a 60-degree angle. And then at that point in time, that's when I called Desiree and said, all right, Desiree, figure out the math for me. And we all know that's true. So yeah, that's the big thing for me is when I do stuff like that, there's a whole, you could try to do something else with it and figure that out. But the easiest way is going to be literally just when they change the height, it automatically changes the width and the depth or whatever you want to call it on the top blend to adjust accordingly. I was trying to think if I've never had to use so much math in my life in the family creation. Yeah, I now go back to that middle school teacher. So you're going to be using this trig and geometry all the time in life. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not. I didn't until Revit. So
no.
That's how Revit sucked me in. If it worked for the math and the family editor, I would not be a Revit person.
well, I love conditional statements and I love doing all that sort of stuff. I enjoy it. I just struggle with the math, which is why if you're like me, Tom, and you struggle with math, you marry an engineer. Just saying. That was my answer.
Very elaborate solution to a pretty simple problem.
It was, but it was easier than going. It was easier than going to a really good school and probably less expensive.
I'll work on that.
Yeah, that sounds like a challenge.
Hold on, I'm going to ignore the rest of the meeting so I can like peruse fill an expensive website here.
Caitlin's like, I go to my structural engineers if I have crazy math to do. Exactly. I just married one.
It makes us feel good.
Oh, I had one that Desiree was like, okay, wait, I'm overcomplicating this. Hold on, I'm going to call my other structural engineer buddies, and they all got on it together to get a question, one of my formulas figured out for me. So what's the next one?
All right, our next one from Chris is there a way in the newer releases with group tagging to tag the elements in the group before the group itself? So by default, making the group require the tab, not the other stuff.
Oh, out of the box, not to my knowledge. I know Melissa might have a different answer because they use groups a lot more than I do. And I'm going to do a plug here for one of the added utilities. There is Ideate software has a utility under their annotate. And one of the things under their annotate, you might actually like this, Melissa, because I know your door families are similar to me. But when you go to the tag option, you can create rules. So like if I were to go do a tag all on my doors, I get 15 tags on top of a door because all of my components of that door are a door family. The leaf's a door, the frame's a door, the hardware for the doors are doors, et cetera, et cetera. So, I get 2 tags for kick plate on each side. I get 2 tags for the hardware on each side, 2 tags for the closers on each side. Even though they might be empty, I get all these tags. So if I use the Revit tag all not tagged, I get a pile of tags. But the tag all not tagged on theirs is you can actually build rules into this. And some of those rules you can have in there are, is this going to be, and I'm going to come in here and see if we can do it. Is this, it's probably this one, manage rules. Is this nested? So I've created one of my own tag rules. No, I'm in Revit 25. I did it for 24, but we'll go create a new rule. By category, sure, we'll say next. We'll go say this is going to be for, in my example, why can't I find, I did this. Maybe I'll go to 24. I have 24 open. We'll go to 24 real quick and new browse. I'm gonna use my template because I know there's my template has doors in it. Yeah, but so you can build rules like, hey, I'm gonna tag this. We'll see if one of the rules that you could build on the IDA tag all would be groups, part of a group, or don't tag the group. I'm not sure. But yeah, so out of the box, Chris, no, there's no way to do it. There might be an add-on utility that would allow you to do something like that. Could you possibly hide the group? No, because if you hid the group, it would hide everything inside the group. So that wouldn't work. Put a floor plan here. Maybe look at some doors. Right, so just as an example, if I go to the out of the box annotate and I go tag all, and in my tag all, I say, cool, go tag a door, and I say, okay, great, kind of a cluster. But with the IDA tools, I did create one of my own rules with their IDA tools. If I go to annotate and I go to tag. Yeah, some of their examples are, especially like MEP people out there, don't tag any ducts that are smaller than 5 feet long or whatever, and any type of things like that. filter. So we're gonna come in here. So gonna go into the rules. I gotta go tags first. Go to tags here. So you can see I have one here called, I should have one here called doors. See, I keep struggling with this. It should be finding the one for doors. It is not, but it's okay. We'll go into the rules. And rules. I've got one. Oh, I do not have my doors. Must have done Revit 23. That's okay. We'll just go edit this one. So like here it says doors. So what type of tag are you going to use? In this case, I'm going to use the type mark tag that's there. I could have any one of the door tags I had inside of there, whatever you're looking for. But then down here, you've got all these different things. So hey, I want to, in this case, they said the phase has to equal number 2 for new construction phase. But what I can also do is come in here and say, okay, cool. I actually want to go look for other properties. And in those other properties, I want to go look for forget what it is. It's just probably under types. I can come down here and say, what is it called? Is nest? Nope. Is that going to be instance space? That's probably an instance space property. Instance is nested. So is nested condition is equal to false. And then we'll delete this one. So basically now I can tag as long as the nesting is equal to false. So now if I say save and close on this, I say, okay, I've got my door new, I can check it. It's highlighting everything that meets that. I can go say add tags. And now I'm not going to get my 15 tags on top of each other. I'm only going to get the one individual tag that's in there. So I don't know if one of those settings would be, is it part of a group? That would be something to look for, or hit the ideate people up to ask. But that is one of those features that out of the box you're hosed, but hopefully you can come in and get that. Still can't tag legend components in a legend is a follow-up question. That is correct. You still can't tag legend components in a legend. On that, Caitlin, I personally don't do legends. So this little area I zoomed into here in my template, you can see I've got a whole crap ton of section markers, and I've got all these doors modeled. Well, the reason for me on that, if I come down to my door legend view, I have floor plan views, I have section views of the actual modeled components. I don't know, you guys do something to similar to this, Melissa, or do you guys actually put?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we have live legend views because then you can also use your view templates to make sure they look like your plan as opposed to whatever the heck they want.
Yeah, so for me, I have all these views set up, and these are actually live versions of the door. So if I select this, I don't know which door that is, but it's one of my doors. That is literally grabbing the door. So I've got these set up with, I've got an overall parent view, and then in that parent view, I have all the dependent views. So each one of those is a dependent view, just so I can see what's going on for all the different like frame types, etc. So yes, if I were to grab this door, go into this door and say, cool, I wasn't using a frame 22, I was using a frame 40, that door is going to change. And then my tag is going to update as well, right? So we are tracking that all the way through. Yeah, it's going to probably delete a whole bunch of views. It might even delete the door because I chose a totally terrible frame. Yeah, it's going to delete the door too. But, as I go through and change some of those, then this would all update. The schedule is going to update, etc. I did this for one of my clients, and he's like, well, if we're doing that, why aren't we actually just coming through here and also doing plan views? So he does plan views in all of his door legends as well. So he has the plan view above it, below it, to the side, everything. And he's like, I do all sorts of views because now I can, since we're doing live data. And if I change that, it goes through and changes it out. So yes, you still can't tag legend components. The other reason why I do this, and I know I'm kind of weird, my nested leafs are work plane based objects. And if you try to do a work plane based object as a legend component, it will only ever show you the side. I can't show the front or the back of my work plane based component. Ironically, though, Revit did add a tool. I don't even remember where it is, but you can actually say, hey, for legend components, I don't need legends. You can go force it to see which orientation you want, which this actually does break that out of the box. I can only see the side of hosted elements. Of work plane based elements. So if you were to use these as legends, the reason I never did is I couldn't even see the freaking front view of any of my work plane based elements. This actually did fix it for us. So hopefully that answers the follow-up question, which was just in the chat. So what's the next question?
Let's see. Oh, so
Yeah, Michael Freehart's like, yeah, Revit's terrible. I still do use legends. I'm not saying I don't use legends. I still have legends, but for like most people, my legends are like, oh, gee, it's going to be what my symbols are. It's going to be what my tags are, things like that. Or if I do like general page notes, those are legends as well. So if I've got like, floor plan notes, reflect the demo notes, I always do those as legends because then they can reside on multiple sheets as well. And Mark said, so setting it up that way is simply addressing the legend tagging. The legend tagging, yes, but also the fact, like I said, it's live to the model, so the object updates, so does this, but also the fact for me, my work plane based components, I couldn't do a legend. And I do that for everything. If I come back and actually look at like this, all of my mounting symbols, all my mounting requirements and heights, etc., those are also real components that are there as well. So if I needed to see a floor plan or anything like that, or if I go into these are all the live components for all of my mounting heights. Because if I swap this out, and for me, if I'm like, we're not using this urinal, I right click in the project browser, do a reload from, and when I reload it to a different urinal, I see the actual urinal that's in the project. So all of my legend components aren't just dumb lines or whatever. It's truly going to what that family is that I bring in. And if that family has this different, then I've got to make sure that I'm editing that family to have the flush control valve where it should be, etc.
Because you know how to party.
So sorry, Melissa, I keep jumping into the questions you're about to read. I know you're following the questions. I was trying to look at the chat.
No, it makes sense to do the follow-up instead of jumping over to something else. So let's see. Next question is, what is the best practice to export to DWG and have wall finish layers either placed on specific layers more accurately to freeze easily or turned off completely? The export settings seem to be inconsistent with each individual wall line.
So when you are talking about exporting, right, you've got to come in obviously to your settings. So you can come down and you brought up walls. We'll come down to walls. So with walls, you do have the capability to come down here based on how the structure of your wall is set up to turn these objects into different layers, etc. So a lot of like, the membrane layer, the structural layer, the substrate layer, these are all just coming on a wall layer. Same thing with like the thermal area, etc. And so what all that is talking about here is what does that all mean, right? So if we go back and look at one of our walls, and we go edit type on a wall, right? And we go edit the structure, all of these different layers, you've got structure one, finish one, etc. All of those are referring to this stuff. So if you're like, man, I've got tile and I want that tile to be on a different layer than the gypsum board and a different layer than the substrate, etc., you've got to set your walls up accordingly. And then once those walls are set up the way you believe they need to be set up, that's where you go into those export settings and you can then go in and say, cool, put these on two different layers. Now, the downside to some of this, and sometimes that I've actually seen this happen, export. So I always just go up there, but I always forget I can come down here to options for CAD. So when we get into here and we start looking at this under those walls, it's also weird because common edges also are all of these things as well. So sometimes you got to be careful of what's going on with the common edge, etc. The other thing that is also possible to do is you can also add layer modifiers. And what a layer modifier is like, oh, I wanted to add a new custom layer modifier, but you can base it off of like the phase. So if you wanted to be a wall, new or a wall demo or a wall existing, whatever, you can base it off of what the phase created or the phase demolishes. So you can set it off of those types of things as well. So you could have it on a wall, depending what your phase name is, or phase status. Phase status means, hey, depending on the view you were in, I'll pick up the status of that element. So, right, if you're in phase one, that wall or that object's going to be new. But if you switch to phase two, the status of that object is existing. So you can also build in these as you start coming inside of here as well when you get into it. And you'll see that this is like, oh, walls, common edges. It is giving you what is going to go inside of there, looking at these two things together. So just putting it out there. You get into it. It is a pain. I've had to troubleshoot this quite a few times to see what's going on and to make sure I'm doing it right. And it's been a while since I've actually had to set this up, so I don't recall. I remember there were some stupid struggles too with it. It was just everything was going out as common edges, and I was ignoring the structure or the substructure. But I don't remember exactly what that was. So theoretically, Chris, that should work for you.
Exciting. Let's see. Oh, here's a random comment from Jacob. Did you know the maximum number of curtain wall grids is 200 vertically and horizontally?
That number has come down because, and I believe the person who I learned this with is actually in attendance here. One of my clients way back when, probably back in 2005, was they were remodeling an old prison or an old jail. And so I used a curtain wall to make all the bars and the little horizontal things. And we had to break the wall down into several different things because there was like a limit of like 900 elements. Maybe it's elements I'm thinking of, not grids, but it was like there was a limit of like 900 or something like that elements. And right in Revit, a mullion, each mullion gets segmented at each horizontal grid. So even though we've got one mullion going vertically, Revit breaks that down into like 5 or 6, depending on how many grid intersections you have. So yes, I believe that was Marta who's here. I think it was her company. We did that. And I was like, oh yeah, there is a limit. So we had to break it down into small little areas to get it to do that. And I was like, oh cool, I learned something new. You can't do an entire jail wall with curtain walls. You have to break it up. But as for the exact number, I don't have to remember. I just know there is a limit. Yes, it was Marta. Yeah, I thought it was your company, Marta.
All the excitement. Let's see. Before we get back to apps, is there a way to make a tread profile family read a riser height from the stair?
Is there a way to make a tread profile family? I guess, Rick, I'm going to ask a follow-up question to that. Why are you trying to get the profile family to read the riser height from the stair? Just out of curiosity. To my knowledge, no. I don't believe you can do that, but I was just kind of curious on what you were trying to do with that. Yeah, there's a lot of things in Revit that I've wished you could extract data from the object you're hosting to. Right, like even in my doors, like I want the doors, they automatically can pick up on the width of the wall, but I want to be able to know what that is. I can put a reporting parameter in my family, but in that family, once I put a reporting parameter in there, I can't use it because it's not any of the host stuff. So it's kind of frustrating me on a lot of things. Or like when I nest a family, when I nest one family into this, I want to extract data from the nest into the parent. I can't do that either. My tread has included the riser concrete pan and the riser and the concrete pan. Yeah. Unfortunately, in that, you're not going to be able to do that. So you're going to have to create parametric on that and create a different stair for every single one of those heights. I would not even attempt to finish that. I would just use the riser as the riser and have my nosing be something different. And yeah, there's going to be a line in section, but right, that's what we do details for.
Yeah. But boo still.
Yes, but
Let's see. Okay, our last three look to be some app questions.
What's you doing first?
Let's see. So if we go with Tim's, he's asking if you have time to talk about Revolution design tools, looking into Keynote tools.
So the first thing I will say about the Revolution design tools is that I tell Steve this all the time when I talk to him. He's the guy who created this. Is in the settings for Revolution design. One of the things I freaking love is you can come down here and rename the freaking tab of what it is. So I don't need the whole word Revolution design all the way across here. I have went in and renamed my tab to be RD. With that said, you do have to do it if you have all of his tools and each one of his tools. So you have to come into all of those and be like, oh, cool, I want to name the tab this. Because if you don't, you'll have an RD tab and a Revolution tab. So it is great to freaking have on that. The other thing that I also like on here is he also has these as dockable panes if you want. So depending on what you're doing, like my selection master and my keynote manager, I have as dockable panes. So I literally have mine behind my project browser and behind my properties for when I need to go in and start using them. So I'm not constantly coming up here and doing this or having something free floating, not freeloading, that's children. I have my free floating tools. I like them to be all locked in underneath here. This also went into, I saw somebody put this, it was a question in the chat. It's like, how do I get different views? So a couple of tools that Steve has. I don't use all of his tools. I don't use a ton of them. The Keynote Manager, I pretty much assume every office should have. If you don't invest the money, it's extremely inexpensive. I know my one client of like 25 users has this, and I think it's like less than $1,000 a year for all 25 users. Don't quote me on prices, but I just do know that everybody should be start working with Keynote Manager. So that's a cool one. What Keynote Manager is it allows you to start doing keynotes right in here. My project doesn't have a keynote file to it, but if I did have a keynote file to it, I can actually just come in here and be like, okay, yeah, that doesn't actually exist. But it'll start coming through here and you can see what keynotes are being used in your project, what aren't. You can edit it right here within Revit and save it. You do have to go into one of the settings for Keynote Manager, and I did find this out the hard way, is you need to allow instant save. If it's set up to manual save, then only one person can be editing it at a time. You might want that, I don't know. But if it's set up to instant save, the second you make a change, it's saving it behind the scenes. So you don't run into the conflict of two people trying to access that file at the same time. But you'll see it's got a lot of different things inside of here. You can add all of the things in here. Again, what's the tools? Editing, how do you want to edit? Always do uppercase, ignore uppercase words. There's a lot of different things inside of here. Where is the master files, etc. It's got great tools, but it's a great tool to be able to say, cool, here's what we're doing, here's what we need. The other thing is when you're inside of here, I believe if you find the keynote you want, you can drag and drop it and it'll put you into user keynote, not element keynote. And you can actually just put that keynote down on something as well. So it's a great tool to start having inside of here. He's got all these other selection master tools, so you can actually start coming in and what you want to select. One of the things I love is level rehost. So if you go into level rehost, I got to select some levels. Level rehost here, it'll give it to you, and then say, hey, cool, I want to rehost this, and it's going to tell you what's going on, how can we get in there, etc., and get those things set up. The other tool that I know is one of his popular tools is the got to find it here, is the auto link. So the auto link tool here allows you to even place a piece of text. And if your text says, hey, see sheet or see detail X on 303, it automatically will go create a link through that piece of text to detail 3 on sheet A303 in your project. It's automatic inside of here. So once you have that auto link set up, if you go change that sheet number anywhere your text is set up to that, it'll go through and update it. They've also got things in here called like little auto links. So you can place generic annotation symbols like a generic section head or whatever you wanted that will also be set up to automatically find a detail and a sheet within your project. And again, if that updates, it goes through and does it. You can also do it through other files. Like, cool, I want to look for detail 3 on A303 in this file, and it will go through and set that up for you. So I have quite a few clients who use
schedules too.
Yes, and it also works in schedules too. So most of the clients I know have this tool as well. It's like, oh my God, it does like that old AutoCAD linking for you. He's also got a great tool in here for floors. You can automatically create floors based off of a room, which is cool. And the other thing about it is in his settings, you can actually say, hey, when you come up to an opening, where do you want that floor to go? I've seen other add-in utilities have this, but they just go to the face of the wall. His goes in and digs into the door and actually goes to like, hey, there's an opening here. I want to go to the center line of the wall, et cetera, et cetera. And then he's got an update because as we know, that's just going to be, it just does it there. So we can say go through and update all of the floors. So a lot of different tools in here that you can have. One that I use for me most often, and I like this one a lot, is if you have a, there's no dimension here. If you have a dimension and you constantly are using a lot of different tools inside of here, like I have this, oh cool, I want that to say max. I've got to add in utilities for all these dimension overrides to come in here and do this. I got a max, a min, an RE schedule, a plus or minus. I can come in here like, no, that's plus or minus. You can set up pre-set up standards for his dimensioning tool, the dimension overrides tool, and you can have the standards. Or if you had one here, do you wanted to match it here? You can match all of those as you get into there. So really, really cool. I love most of the tools he has, but for me, who's not in projects every day, I don't use all of them. And he's also got one like level, is it the reporting? I don't remember. There's one in here where, yeah, you can start coming in through here and just saying, cool, I want to go to levels and start seeing everything that's associated to a level. I don't even remember where it is. But yeah, you can start saying, hey, I want to grab everything that's associated to level 2, because now I need to go through and reassociate those to level 3. And I forget where that tool is. It's probably one of the other tools, but yeah, you have that capability to go through and do it. Quick level, quick category. Quick phase demolished.
I do remember the level rehost saving our butt once when, there was a massive rearrangement and
Oh, I use that one all the time because for some reason I get clients who decide they need to create levels at the same level as something else and then realize, oh, cool, on that west tower it's going to move, but everything on the east tower is modeled on the west tower because nobody's paying attention. Follow-up question was, is this all one package or is each one their own? Each one's their own. So you've got Keynote Manager, Selection Master, and then the Workflow Manager. I believe those are the 3 tools he has. So each one of these panels is a separate package that you purchase from him. Well, I don't. To me, the stupid dimension overrides. I don't know how often you guys putting in dimension text overrides, and somebody asks, "Is that just prefix suffix?" No, it's anything you want. It can be prefix suffix. Because if I come in here, you can see whatever it is. Like, cool, I want to go create a new one. It just brings it up. Do you want to replace the text? Do you want to use it? Do you want to be above, below, or the suffix? You can completely change whatever you want it to say. And you can also have it ignore certain dimensions. So if you're like, oh, I only ever want to say plus or minus if it's, less than 4 feet, I can say, cool, change only dimensions that are less than 6 inches if I'm doing the plus or minus or whatever. So you have capabilities out here. You call it, you give it a name, and then once you give it a name, you can then add your 6 favorites over here, and those 6 favorites are what show up into the dropdown. And then the match overrides and the clear overrides is nice too. So I can just say, hey, clear that up. Try that again. Clear override on this one, finish, and there you go. You can do individuals or whole screen. When you do it, it's actually, I don't even know if you can do whole screen. Let's just see. Not escape. Does anybody else always hit escape on that one stupid command?
yes.
I'm going, haha, Brian does it too. So if I grab this and I say, RD plus or minus, yeah, it'll do all of them if you have them all selected. If you don't have them selected, I can be like, I want that one and that one to say plus or minus. Yeah, somebody, Mike's like, I just the macro min to make these all min on one of my mouse buttons. And Melissa did post it in the chat if you guys really want to know his products or anything he gets into. I just got to remember to now put that into the YouTube channel when I do the YouTube channel.
Yes. I should also add that his cloud work sharing for keynotes works way better than the everybody's favorite desktop connector. Because although Autodesk says that works for keynoting, there is the latency between everybody's computer, so you can overwrite somebody else's things if you're doing keynotes just using that. But his is it's been a while since I've to buy it, but I feel like it wasn't super expensive and it works really well.
Yeah, I
Had
actually,
it before Autodesk had a solution.
yeah, it was way before that a solution. But yeah, I have clients who use it and it's great because I get in, it's like, oh, you're a member of this thing. Like they add me to it as well, and it automatically just works because I have it as well. I was
Yeah,
like, cool. Now I see all their keynotes, and if they update it, it all goes through. It works great.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, if somebody, that original question was, I think we're looking at Keynote Manager. If you're looking at Keynote Manager, just buy the damn thing. It's just a no-brainer. It really is. I had one client who they had, because way back when, I think it was 2010, he had a free version of the Keynote Manager. I think he stopped it, and I had a client literally last year who was still using it. And I'm like, oh, we need to do this cloud-based thing because we're going to get into 3 different architects or in this file. We all want to be on the same Keynote file. And so they upgraded. He's like, why didn't we upgrade earlier? This right now is so much easier. Everything's inside of there, getting into it, and yeah, so it's just so much easier to do that.
Yeah. Giant fan.
Just that's one of those things you're going to save so much time and headache. And then people are still like, oh, I use Excel and then I do a save as, and we save it as the TXT file. If you are doing that, the amount of time you spend doing that, you just buy the damn product. It's so inexpensive. It will save you that time. And Caitlin said, and you're still a proponent of detail item tags versus keynote tags for detail items. Yes, absolutely am, because my problem with keynotes is keynotes cannot have anything custom field to them. So when I'm detailing, if I want to add a specific note of alternating or 2 layers or whatever, that would be an entire different keynote, and that just seems insane to me. I don't need 500 different keynotes of the same number just to get 2 layers or alternating word in there. And Beth says, yes, absolutely use the cloud version. See, I think 90% of the people in here today actually are saying cloud, saying they use the Revolution design tools. Cool. So what's our other question? You said a lot of questions on add-ins, so.
Yes, well, we've only got 2 left, so I guess bring it, people. So Rick had a question about Roombook, Area Book, and Building Book. Purpose and what your thoughts are.
So you were talking about the interoperability tools, I believe. This is one of those tools that I've really wanted to get into and start looking at, which gets into the Roombook. I believe it's Area Book, Building Book. No, Jason's saying those are different. I thought those were the same thing.
Yeah, I didn't think they were either. I thought they were separate, but I haven't looked for a while.
Oh, yeah, no, they used to be all one. Yeah, this is different. I have to go into the cart to find the Roombook ones. At one point in time, they were all in the same download, but they broke them apart years ago. Roombook. Roombook, I've never really got into. I tried playing with this. I can't even find it. I tried playing with this a while ago, and like what it looked like it was gonna do for me looked fine, but I couldn't really. I didn't find it in here. So maybe I don't know where it is. But yeah, I've never really got into that Roombook area book. There were some thoughts on it that was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be able to calculate all of our FAR and everything like that. And I just literally could not get into it that much. Where are we now? Yeah, still away. There it goes. Yeah, this is the model checker, etc. Yeah, this one is the model checker where you can go to make sure you're following company standards, etc. This was created by one of the Autodesk resellers, and then Autodesk acquired them quite a few years back. I believe the Autodesk reseller still maintains this for Autodesk itself, but yeah, and Tim says he's using Roombook to help calculate finishes, but not really useful for areas or anything like that. I never was able to get into that. It's under the quantification tab in Revit. What? So quantification. CAD Microsystems, yeah, they developed it. I don't have a quantification tab in Revit. Tim posted the link. Yeah, so I really can't answer that one, Rick. Never really got into those.
So your thoughts are it's hard to find, and
it's hard to find, and yeah, I don't know. Some of those tools, like even the even the interoperability tools, they do a lot of things, but there's so much setup in them. I don't have time to play with something when I have to do so much setup just to try to play with it.
Yeah. And I did try to look into those, the Roombook and Area Book, years ago. And I think we did end up going mostly for finishes, but then we weren't quite sure what made it much better than just making sure we modeled well and scheduled everything.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing I was. And I remember there was something else. The one thing I tried to remember is it was a way to do like field area ratios where I could actually say, cool, on the west side of my building, I have this much, whatever. And it was like, you could try to break it down and do things like that, but I was not able to really get that going. So I don't remember. All right, Beth, follow up. What is SDT? Oh, part of the interoperability tools. Yeah, I was working with one client who's heavy into using interoperability tools. Yes, thank you. They're in the interoperability tools, and they were starting to do the standardization data tool to try to link that to keynotes. Or then they realized the keynotes weren't going to work, so they were trying to link that back to the detail components. So kind of like keynoting, where one person's in charge of the tools. What Beth's talking about is in the interoperability tools, they have a thing called standardized data, the SDD tool. And that tool is like, oh, I have an Excel spreadsheet or whatever that's going to have all this data that I can then bring in and say, okay, now that needs to be associated to these elements. You can then start linking your detail components to the standardization tool that then goes out to your Excel file. And if you update the Excel file, theoretically, it pushes it through. The problem we kept having is there was no way to set that up on each individual family. So you had to have a file that had all of those families loaded into it from what we could tell. And we did get with Jason Kunkel, who works on the interoperability tools. And he's like, yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't go to the family level at that point. And that was about a year ago. So sorry, Rick, we got nothing for you on the Roombook other than Tim said, cool, I used it for areas. I mean, finishes. Cool. Beth said they did get that fixed. All right. So what's our last question? Actually, looks more like a statement.
It is kind of more of a statement. Our last question slash statement is asking if anyone knows coding so they can help them get PyRevit 2025 done.
Yeah,
for me.
I was expecting PyRevit to take a while for Revit 25 because for those of you who did not know this, behind the scenes, Autodesk went to .NET 9 or 8, I forget. But they updated the .NET programming, and I know the way .8, yeah. So I know the way that the programming was done in, and I'm not a great programmer, but in a lot of the PyRevit, it was so built to where when you upgraded to the .8, the net .8, I could see that it was probably going to take a whole lot of rewrite for a lot of the PyRevit stuff to work. I had a couple other add-in utilities go, yeah, these are kind of old stuff. It's not really working with the .8, and they had to do a lot of rewrite to get it done. So I, honest truth, was not expecting PyRevit to come out for a while. Yeah, and like I remember when there was something when the printing all changed and it kind of broke for a year in PyRevit. Yeah. But yeah, that was a big thing. I'm excited. For those of you who aren't in the beta, do not purchase anything on this. One of the features that they've been talking about for years, and I think it's actually on um the roadmap now, is when you start Revit, it's going to show you all the add-ins you have and tell you how long those add-ins are taking to open. So I'll be really curious to see that on some. And I know somebody here before said they went through and like timed all of these, like, hey, I installed every ad and put one in and opened up Revit. Realized it took 32 seconds longer. Oh, closed that one, opened up the next one, realized it took this. Because for me, like I turned off, and I love the product, but I turned off Inkscape because Inkscape was taking over a minute for me to open Revit. It was adding an additional minute of time for me to do it. I usually go through and have more of these turned off than I currently do. Same thing with the CTC tools. For me, when I had the CTC tools, it was like, oh my God, it was taking so long to open. So I've renamed most of those add-ins so they don't show up, and if I need them, I go back. But the other nice feature of it is in the beta that they're doing is you're going to have a standalone thing to be able to turn all those add-ins on or off, or do it within the program itself. So hey, next time I open it, these can be turned off. I'm really excited and hoping it works. And hoping to actually release it. I think it was on the roadmap, so hopefully we'll eventually see it. The next big one I was an or option for schedules and filters.
Mm.
An apply button for schedules. Well, we are at the top of the hour. So I thanks everyone for being here and listening. We did have a good turnout, a lot of new names, which is always nice to see. I'm looking forward to content catalog. Rick was asking me. I actually have the content catalog up here, which this pisses me off personally. We're going to give you a whole ribbon button for a tool. Terrible, but no, I've got into it now. Hey, yeah, it's a beta. I know it's a beta. I've been into it now, and I just until I know, and they basically have said, well, we're in beta. Any work you do, you're gonna have to throw away when it actually becomes a real release. I haven't done a whole lot with it because I don't like putting a whole bunch of time and effort into it. I do know this was old Unify, and a lot of things Unify had I was excited about. So it's kind of like, cool, they have it, but they're still not there. It also gives you a desktop app. Okay, you can go away, cancel.
So it's a whole ribbon for a button that opens the desktop app.
Yeah, exactly. There is a desktop app, and I love the fact that they left it black, so my black background, you can't even see it. But they do have the app here too that you can get into and start getting to it. So yeah, I can't wait for them to actually do something with it, but from what I can tell, it's nowhere near where Unify was because they are trying to switch this all over to work off of ACC. But I think what you will see, and this is my 100% speculation, is like right now when we go to insert, we've got the load Autodesk family. I think they're trying to get rid of that crap, and the content catalog is going to be that. So I think it'll be more brazen. Oh, now we can use this load content catalog stuff and come in here.
But where else are we going to find our 2014 table families if they get rid of it?
So yeah, that's me. Then of course the app I use the most is my color tabs. I was like, which app do you use the most? I'm like, color tabs, because it's always there, and I'm always clicking on it because there's a limitation to the UI that won't allow this to work without toggling it off and back on. So every time I open up Revit, I toggle that off and back on. But yeah, everybody I know likes Unify. All right, that's it. Thank you, everyone. I will try to get this recording posted on my YouTube channel. So if you've got coworkers, enemies, people you just want to bore to death to put to sleep, maybe you'll have your children listen to me. I have no idea. We'll get this up on the YouTube, and if you want to go back and see any of the old ones, it'll be on my YouTube channel. Just search the Revit Geek. Otherwise, we will see you all next month. Thanks, everyone.